Right, so I'm finally on vacation and now I can put in a lot of hours. I have some interesting stuff coming this week. Firstly, I bought a sandblasting pot. They're quite inexpensive and it's actually a really good investment to have. It's saving me a lot of time in terms of cleaning stuff up. I put together this like little crate setup with some cardboard and stuff just to catch some of the medium so that it doesn't like end up everywhere, and also to reuse some of it because you can use it more than once. I've tested it out and blasted some parts and then painted them with etch primer. It came out really nice. Other than that, I also started doing some sheet metal repairs and that also came out nicely. I know it looks like it's a bit imperfect and it is, but I can't grind this out anymore without chewing into the parent material, but I mean a little bit of body filler will fix that. Overall I'm satisfied for a first attempt. Let's quickly jump inside and I'll show you what I've been up to in there. Inside I finally finished boxing in the frame. It's not the prettiest job, but it will suffice and it looks better now. There's no holes left. I had a lot of trouble welding vertical and upside down with a MIG. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with a MIG yet, but it worked out fine. We'll cut to some footage of that right now. I also started on the sheet metal work for the other door. I'm still trimming down some patches and it's coming along nicely. I would have liked to do this entire section, but I don't have the skills or the equipment to do that, especially since there's like this body line. I mean, hell, this one was already difficult to make because I don't have panel beating dollies. I'm using like planks and a piece of pipe, and to be fair, it's like working fine. So the patches will do for now, and after I finished the other door I actually kind of know what I'm doing now. So I'll take a quick time-lapse video of me fixing this door and then I'll walk through the process of how I do it. Don't take my word for it, it's probably not the correct method to do it, but it's what works, so that would be my advice. And when we're done with this door, we'll get to the body, start cutting out the rear quarter panels and all the rust sections there and rebuilding those as well. So yeah, let's get to work. Right, so it's getting a little bit late, so just bear with me. I'm not sure how much detail you guys saw in those time lapses because I've changed the settings a little bit so that the overall duration of a time lapse is shorter, otherwise they become a little bit tedious and long to watch. But let's quickly run through what I did. I'd say the first step is probably the most tedious, but the best in terms of making your whole life easier, and that's trimming down your patches until the fitment is nearly perfect. Alright, I'd say that and that is about the maximum amount of tolerance you want to allow, otherwise you're going to start blowing holes through, or you have to bridge gaps, which causes too much heat. If you're using a MIG, heat is your enemy, all right? You can't go throwing seams because you'll melt the material or warp it, all right? What you want to do once your patch is like trimmed down properly, attach it to your magnets and get it in place, more or less. Don't worry about getting every single edge flush. It's not going to happen. Focus on one edge first. For example, I focused on this bottom one. Then imagine the patch is my middle finger, parent material is my index finger. If you're looking at it from the side, it needs to be perfectly flat. Then you can tack it. Make sure it's not higher or lower. Just hammer it in place until it's perfectly flat and tack it. All right. Once you've tacked it in place, don't go tacking next to it because you're going to localize too much heat. Go to a different side, do the same, different side, do the same, and then just like, just spread it out until you have a few in. Not this much because then you don't have an opportunity to manipulate the rest of the material. Basically, once you finished one edge, go to the different edge, repeat the process. Once you have it more or less in place, you can throw in more tacks, but again, just space them out so that you don't localize the heat too much. Once you have this done, you can leave the material a little bit to cool down. Just feel how much heat it's soaked. Let it cool down. Then you can go filling in more tacks in between these ones. Don't throw seams. Again, you're going to melt it, going to warp it. Don't do it unless you have a TIG welder. But yeah, basically you want to tack this entire patch in place. Grind down the tacks. Once you've ground down the tacks, you'll see there's a little bit of imperfections, such as little spaces where the material didn't penetrate properly, the tack didn't penetrate the material properly, and also just like little pins and needles and undercuts and all that. Tack over them, ground them down again, and you're basically done. Gonna do all that off camera because it's a little bit tedious, especially the grinding. It takes the most amount of time, so quickly gonna finish that and then I'll be right back. Right, so I finished tack welding in all the patches and then proceeded to grind them down. Now it does not look pretty, but take into consideration it is tack welds and I do suck at this. So yeah, I've noticed your eyes are going to betray you, all right? Your first instinct will be, oh sorry, I'm like bleeding everywhere. Your first instinct will be to dig out these welds because you can still see them. Don't do that. You're going to end up digging out the material. Basically just feel it with your fingers until it's flush. What I like to do is grind them down, take a sanding paper, scuff up the surface, then you can see high and low spots. Now as you can see here is already a low spot and the welds are still visible. So if I continue to dig out these welds, I would dig out this material so thin this entire process would be useless. So yeah, don't go overboard. This is what body filler is actually for. Other than that, when you're done, take a paint scraper, scrape off all the splatter. It's no reason to sand this any more than it has to be. If you really do want to get rid of this stuff, you can always fill it with lead or something. I do not recommend it. This isn't a good place to do it because you'll end up warping the material. However, if you like welded something there and want to do it, yeah, whatever. Don't do it here, but it is an option. Overall, quite happy with how it turned out. I'm not sure how I can show you, but the proportions and the angles and the bends are pretty good, especially considering I'm not really good at this in general. Other than that, oh sorry, it's like Friday night, super late, time to go home, so I think that's about it for today. We'll get to the car next time. Cheers guys.